You're muted.
I was off 0 to 60. See, you could have done that. You could have done that. That's okay. It's live. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? So, hi. This is the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. That is Robert Hilliard. I am Whitney Wiley, and we are here on Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, talking all things leadership. And today we have a special episode for you for a couple of reasons. The first of which is that last week we started Self-Awareness Month. But it wasn't July. It wasn't July.
It was not.
We had 5 Thursdays in June, and not thinking that it wasn't the first Thursday in July, we jumped into our discussion about self-awareness, which is our theme for July. But that's okay. We're going to talk self-awareness again today, and we are going to talk about the new international best-selling book, The Joy of Work, of which Robert and I are co-authors. So it is our absolute pleasure to share the book with you, the lessons that we've learned, but we're not here just to talk about the book. We want to tie it into what we do here on Thursdays and for the theme for this month again, which is self-awareness. So we're going to talk about the awarenesses that we had that have informed how we approach work and why we both have joy in our work and how we have moved from, well, I'll speak for myself, I won't speak for Robert, from an unjoyful state work to a very joyful one. And so I've described it this way. There have been periods of my life where I've been unemployed, underemployed, and unhappily employed. And so right now I am very happily and joyfully self-employed. But some of the things that I learned before I launched out for myself full time, I started to incorporate in my last job. There were things that made a huge difference and turned that situation around. So, Robert, any opening thoughts?
Yeah, when you were talking.
Oh, wait a minute. Before you do that, I just want to congratulate you. I just want to say congratulations. Yes, you are an international best-selling author.
You know what's interesting is I feel exactly the same as before. which is a good lesson, right? It's like nothing, the same. I'm the same person, right? It's a great thing to happen, but I feel exactly the same. But I appreciate that.
Oh, opening thoughts.
Opening thoughts. Here's my opening thought. When you were talking, something that came into my mind about, we're talking about self-awareness and we're linking it to the joy of work. And I remember having a conversation with a former boss, and I don't remember exactly what we were going back and forth about. It was, I don't want to say it wasn't a very heavy talk, but it was one of those conversations where you're bantering. It's like, it's light, but there's some gravity to it. Mm-hmm. And I remember him saying, your job shouldn't be enjoyable. That's why they call it work. And I said, that is ridiculous.
Good for you.
I remember that. And I remember he wasn't too happy with my retort. But the bottom line is, it's like, you're going to be doing this for quite a chunk of your life. It really makes no sense to me to be miserable while you're doing it. His thinking was, it's supposed to be miserable. So when you retire, you appreciate it.
You know what?
Good luck with that.
And I'm with you. It's like, why do I want to wait till I retire to enjoy my life? That's that's sort of the point. And work is, for most people, a part of their life. rather than, and he sounds like, I don't know this gentleman, but sounds like someone who thinks that, you work so that it sounded like, so someday you could enjoy your life. And it's like, no, I'm living now. I want to enjoy now. I am here now, and I can do both.
Well, yeah. And I don't want to. I didn't bring this person up so we could, bash him. I mean,
I'm
that's not
not bashing.
right. No, 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 no. But I'm saying I'm reminding myself. Uh, but I think, he had just had a. That is the way that some people, and I don't want to pigeonhole it to certain generations, but he was of a certain age,
Yeah.
and he thought that, work. Why should work be fun? You're here to do a job. You're here to, and it's understandable that it's going to be probably not enjoyable. You grit it out, and then you get paid for it, and then you go and you ride off into the sunset, and then you feel, well, let's if we really want to look at it, not a whole lot of people are going to be able to ride off into the sunset the way things are going economically. People are working later and later into their lives. So I didn't agree with it then, and I still don't agree with it.
No, well, I'm with you on that. And which brings about the reason for the book in the first place. So I came up with the concept for the book a few years ago, three years ago or so, and was in the middle of had just participated in a book the first time I became a bestseller. Participated in the book. I was in the midst of promoting a second book, and I had a thought, all these things that I was doing and watching other people doing, and having come from the place that I came from, which most recently at that time was from some work that for a long time I didn't enjoy. Um, and feeling really blessed, honored, grateful to be doing something that I enjoyed immensely. And I was enjoying the people that I was working with, people that I was collaborating with, getting to know people that because of the pandemic, that I, until this day, still have not met in person.
Mm.
Right. But I started to work with people virtually, collaborating, and it just dawned on me that I really enjoy what I'm doing. And prior to that, it's sort of my evolution to getting to this place was going through a process of looking back over the history of my work, which at that time had been like 40 years of, say that out loud, right? Like 40 years of work. And there had been different points in time when I did enjoy what I was doing. All right. And some of the commonalities of those times had to do with the people that I worked with, all right, making connections, having fun. I did not enjoy waiting tables, but I enjoyed my job and my time while I was waiting tables because of the people that I worked with and what we did to make that environment, make the culture fun. I worked for a period of time in as a counselor for day camp. Can't say that was it was hard. It's hard work.
I've done it.
Looking after other people's children, really, really hard work. But the environment, the culture, the ability to connect with people and simply look to have fun. And I started tying together sort of the thread of when I enjoyed my work, and it had to do with helping other people in a number of different ways. And then before I got to where I am right now, the job that I had that I would say I enjoyed the most in my life, other than current, I was the director of a program in a high school in Oakland, California. It's called At Promise. The people who created the program wanted to, they were choosing to see the students as at promise rather than at risk, right? So
Mm.
they reframed that. I was in charge of running that program, and my job was to bring community resources into the school and to help the students in the high school to come up with a plan before they graduated. And it didn't matter if it was a 4 year, 2 year, vocational, military, a job, that they just needed to come up with a plan. And I felt more fulfilled and happy in that work than anything that I had done. I left that when I decided to go to law school. So, you know, but looking at the points in time, or, you know, right, that what do you call it? The through line of my life, I just started connecting the dots. And it's like, well, if I can do that wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, if I can incorporate that into it, I will be able to enjoy my life. So it for me, it became less about the work itself than what it was about what I was doing and how I was approaching it. And I saw a little bit of that in reading your chapter.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting because sometimes awareness comes to you after the fact. So, and that's what you're really talking about, after the fact. What we try to do is fine tune it so it's happening while things are going on. I think that's the because when I was, and I didn't reread my chapter. Right? I'm one of those. I very seldomly do I revisit something that I'm just that kind of person. But I do recall. I know, of course, I know what my chapter's about. But I do recall that when all of that was going on, I didn't have any awareness. It was my manager that was bringing things to my attention, and I was going, oh, oh, okay. I didn't see that as a strength, right? So she was picking up things and bringing it to my attention. It wasn't until later that I was able to
Yep.
start doing that for myself. I didn't. But while you were talking, another thing jumped into my mind is like I've enjoyed every single job that I've had.
That's awesome.
I've enjoyed what I've done. Even when I was my very first job out of college, I was in shipping and receiving. I enjoyed it. What I didn't enjoy about every single job was a lot of times the philosophies of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And the people were fantastic. I think that in every job that I've had, I had some people. I have some uh, friends today that are still my friends from like the very first or second job that I've had. So I've always enjoyed the jobs. It was a lot of times the culture or the philosophy. For example, when my boss said you're not supposed to enjoy your work, he that wasn't like an aberration. There were many people there that thought that. It was, I was the maverick. I was the outlier. What do you mean people should enjoy their job? No, I should enjoy my job because I'm an executive. Everyone else should toil. Right? But and that I didn't enjoy that mindset
Right.
and talking to people like that and I joke about it a lot, being pulled aside and told that I'm too cheerful. You're too cheerful. You should not say hi to people when you come in the morning. And I was like, so, and I actually said this. I said, so you want me to be rude? And they're like, well, no, it's just that in the morning when we come in, we don't like to say hi. And I said, well, that's your problem. I said, I said, I'm not going to be. I don't feel that I need to be castigated because I was raised with manners. Why? But there are some people that they have to get into this mindset where I'm working right now, and this is a battle, and it's going to be tough, and it's going to be hairy, and there are going to be problems, and I might not make it out of here today.
But so here's the thing, right? All of that can be true, and you can still enjoy it.
Mhm.
It doesn't have so. This is not to say that every moment of every day, I recorded something yesterday, I think it was, on a series that I'm doing on another platform. And it's not that it's rainbows and unicorns all the time, right? That's not to have joy in your work, to enjoy your work, to love your work, doesn't mean that every moment of every day, every second that you're doing something, that is going to be like, woohoo, right? It doesn't mean that. There are things that I do that are not my favorite things to do. I am, if I could spend all my time simply coaching or doing the consulting work without having to do the admin stuff, without having to do a number of other things, right? If that's all I ever had to do, it would be great. And I have improved. I've taken some of those things off by hiring a virtual assistant, but there still are things that I do that are not my favorite things to do. Does that negate the fact that I'm enjoying what I'm doing? No. And so I think we have to look at the picture more holistically. And for me, that's the piece of, I think, self-awareness that I had, that it didn't have to be all the time, every minute of every day. Otherwise, I was unhappy in it. And starting to separate or segregate the things that I enjoyed from the things that I didn't, and looking at it and saying that you really are doing what you enjoy, what you're doing is meaningful, what you're doing matters, right? Yes, there are these aspects, and if you can sort of compartmentalize them and then focus on what you enjoy, that mindset wise, focus on what you enjoy, then it shifts the game, I think. And so for me, that it started with, and you mentioned that it was someone else calling it to your attention. I would say the same thing happened with me. This wasn't self-awareness from the beginning. Otherwise, I never would have been unhappy in the first place, right? If I had the self-awareness all along, I wouldn't have been unhappy or miserable or unhappily employed, as I've said. But it was a conversation that I had with my husband, who was like, you're miserable. You're miserable. And he knew I was miserable because I came home every night complaining. Right. And it was his calling my attention to it. And then I had to stop and say, wow, if you're complaining every day, why are you someplace that has you behaving this way?
Yeah.
Right. And then I looked at my behavior, not just at home, but in the workplace. And I was complaining to everyone, anyone who would listen, probably people who weren't even listening. I was complaining, and and I had to, at one, I had to own that that's what was going on. And then two, I had to make a decision about whether I was going to continue that or if I was going to do something about it. And I don't fancy myself as someone who, there are some people who complain and that's what makes them happy, right? They're just, that's who they are. Schlep rock, or, one of those people, because I'm wozy me.
Yeah.
That's not my nature. But I wasn't paying close enough attention to what I was feeling or how I was projecting that. And so getting sort of that reality check had me then turn in to start doing the work that I needed to do to turn things around.
Yeah, a lot of that. I think that the younger generation is a lot more self-aware at their age than we were. I'm just going to make them generalization, but I see it, right? They know certain things that I wish I knew at that age. There are other things that they don't have.
That's true.
but they do have that. And it was interesting because as I was doing that work, when talking about my chapter when it all started, I remember that same boss telling me, "You're really good at research." And I never thought, I was like, "I am?" It was like, and she was like, "And you're good at this." I am, and those, I didn't know those things because those were just things that I was doing.
Yeah.
And then it created this awareness. I was like, I really am good at that. I do pull out data points and I do know how to do that. I do enjoy, because I'm super nerd, reading stuff and finding stuff out and making connections. That's one of the things I enjoy. I can't do it for too long because then I start to drive myself crazy. But she was really instrumental in helping me kind of shape the way I think about things, because she was pointing things out to me. And later on, I said, well, I can probably do that for myself, right? And figuring out how to do that for myself, how to be self-aware, how to know when I'm good at things and when I'm not good at things, and what I can do to be better at the things that I'm not so good at. But she was really the first person to start pointing that stuff out to me.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. It was my favorite manager. Really, sat me down and one day said, I want to create a clone of myself in you. And I was like, I don't know how you're going to do that because you're a woman, but that's fine. I'll take all the knowledge you got.
Oh, so literal.
Well, I got to tell you where my mind was at that, like, because, and that's another thing that I learned, that back then when people would give me compliments, I would deflect with humor.
Yeah.
That was my personality. And it took me a while to pick up on that. Like, why? It was like, well, why am I doing that? Well, thank you, Cheryl. I felt uncomfortable. And that became a completely different lesson. Is like, you learn to accept those things. Like, just Cheryl saying that would have probably made me feel self-conscious years ago. But that's something that I had to learn, and I had to do that by cultivating self-awareness.
Yeah. It's interesting that when we think about self-awareness or talk about self-awareness, one of the things that comes to me is this need to not just understand ourselves, right? Not just to see ourselves. And often, you've talked about it, I've talked about it, it starts outside of ourselves. It's people saying things. There was a point in a time in my life when people would challenge let's say the demeanor, right? Or my facial expressions. We know that communication is mostly nonverbal, right? That nonverbal communication is not the nonverbal aspect of communication is the largest part. It's like 93% of communication, whereas the words we speak, the verbal aspect, is only about 7%. And I walked around just sort of with, I would say, a poker face. I didn't ever think that I was walking around with a mean scowl on my face, but I would get all the time, strangers would walk up to me and say, "You're such a pretty girl. Why don't you smile? You should smile." Right. And the worst thing that you can do to someone is tell them that they should smile when there's nothing wrong. Right. And so they were like, "What's wrong with you? You should smile." But what I learned in that, again, so that I have some self-awareness around myself, is that how I present myself is seen by other people, right? It's not just me. I'm not walking through the world and it's just me. And I would respond, "There's nothing wrong. If I had something to smile about, I would smile." And the difference of me now and me then is that I recognize that being here is a reason to smile, right? And back then it was, if something great happened to me, that would be a reason to smile. And I've shifted my perspective because of the things that actually have happened in my life that haven't been so great. Right? We haven't spent a lot of time talking about, my son passed away in 2005. Um, Not a reason to smile, but the reason that he was here is a reason to smile, right? That I have memories of him is a reason to smile. So I could have used that event and decided that the world is an awful place, along with some other things that have not so great things that have happened in my life, and chosen to move forward with that. It's sort of as the leading indicator of
Right.
how I'm living my life. Or I can say, I'm choosing to be happy and find joy in my life because I'm here, because I could easily not be here. And knowing some of the things that I know about me and the light in my life, I could easily not be here. So it all it may originally be something that's called to your attention from outside of you, but ultimately you have to do the work and from within, right? That the self-awareness of not only who you are and how you present to other people matters. It is on you to decide, how you can change that or shift that and live out that awareness of how you're impacting other people. We talk about that a lot here on the State of Leadership. It is your self-awareness is not just about you, it's about how you're impacting other people. And how you do that is largely reflected in what your vision is and how you want your life to continue to unfold. And so living in alignment, we talk about self-awareness, we talk about alignment, living in alignment with your values, with the vision that you want, right? So you have to make choices that are constantly moving you in the direction that you want to go. And if you're not moving in that direction, then you're really moving away from it.
Yeah. And so many things came to mind when you were talking, and the first is the Joe Harry window, right? Everybody has a blind spot.
Oh, you're gonna love this one.
I do love that. Thank you, Amanda. And so I was talking about the Joe Harry window, and that says that we have things that are known to us, things that are only known to others, right? There are things that are known to us that we hide from others, etc. And it's that getting that feedback is really important. And sometimes only other people can bring that to your attention. Now, how you receive that is up to you, right? Feedback, we always say, is a gift.
Yeah.
And we can accept it or we can reject it. It's like when you hear your voice on a recording for the first time and you go, that is not me. Yeah, it is. It's you. What are you going to do with that information, right? Can you change the way sure you can, but do you want to? But it's feedback. And what you do with that feedback is up to you. And sometimes it's not pleasant, but it's still a gift because now you know how others see you. And it's really
cool. And you get to I love that. And every time you say that, remind us, right, that it's feedback. It becomes an opportunity to sort of fine tune, right, what it is you're doing and where it is you're going, taking the time to make sure that what you say you want, where it is you say you're going, that is truly what you want and where you want to go. And that, again, that your actions, that your thoughts, everything is moving you in that direction. And it's very easy to not be cognizant of that because there's so many other things happening, right? There's stuff happening external to us. There are things happening internal within us. And it's very easy to be to not have self-awareness around a lot of things, and being okay with getting the input and the feedback is it's a gift. It's a gift.
Well, it is. I mean, but think about this. If someone gives you information that contradicts how you see yourself, that gives you some choices. Is this person credible? That's the first thing, right? Or maybe they're just doing it to ding you, maybe not. But if you start hearing that feedback from different sources, you know what they say, have a saying in Texas, right? If three people call you a horse, put a saddle on your back. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when you start hearing that, so then you should start thinking. But now we kind of live in this age right now when someone gives you, and for lots of reasons, conflicting information, you push back on it even harder. You double down on it. That's sometimes that's not very helpful.
So I say it's fine if it comes from Texas, but be careful if it comes from Twitter. So
Yeah.
I'll just say it.
Yeah, I learned that when I was doing some work years ago. I was one of the jobs, right? I was a trainer, and I was in Texas doing some work, and one of the gentlemen in the office there said that, and I loved it, and I co-opted it. I thought it was one of the best sayings I've heard, but it makes a lot of sense. It's if a lot of people are saying something, there may be some truth to it,
Yeah.
And so you need to probably start considering it, and have that fine-tune your self-awareness, right? You're taking in information from other people so that you can incorporate that in. We all have filters, right? So you can start to incorporate that and maybe clean your filter a little bit so you can see things about yourself a little more clearly.
Yeah. And we did at least one episode. It may have been a two-parter that we did on feedback, right? And the importance of feedback and how to give feedback as well as how to receive it, which is extremely important for you as a leader to be able to receive feedback. And Robert's point is well taken, right? You'll filter that feedback. You want to look at who it's coming from, whether or not it's true, but it is an opportunity for you to look within and get some self-awareness around what it is you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with the self-awareness that you have around yourself and work, and without well, you can't give away too much about your chapter because you don't remember what your chapter was.
I remember.
You didn't read it. What was it that about having the self-awareness that moved you in the direction of the work that you're doing now?
I enjoyed doing it, but it was also that feedback. I enjoyed doing the work. So I got asked to be a coach. This is really funny. It wasn't like, oh, I want to do that. I got asked. I was already doing organizational development. You know that was part of my job, but I hadn't incorporated coaching into it. And someone said, you'd be good at that. I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. But when I got into it, I realized I liked it. And then I saw the results. It was that feedback, right? Was seeing that, oh, okay, people are really getting something out of this. Before they were getting something out of it, but it was very short-lived, because as you know, training in organizations is an event. It's not part of the process. It should be part of a process.
It should be.
It should be incorporated into a greater process. But many organizations see training as, we're going to have this event and that's going to solve all the problems, like getting married. We're going to get married.
Or getting divorced, because that doesn't solve the problem either.
Right. We're gonna get married, or we're gonna get divorced, and it's gonna solve all our problems. And no, getting married, getting divorced is part of a process,
Yes.
right? If you got divorced because you were the problem, then you have some work to do,
Yes.
right? If you got married, if you're getting married because you're trying to make your relationship better, that's not really going to work. You have work to do,
Yes.
right? So it's not. So a lot of organizations, they see training as it's the answer to the problem, because a lot of organizations, they want to say, hey, we did something about the problem, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to do the right thing for the problem.
Right.
So what I started doing was I started adding the coaching to the training, and it started sustaining the learning. And that's when that was my aha moment. I was like, not only is it helping me doing my job better, it's helping making an impact, helping, improving the learning, was having an impact, and I was enjoying it. So that was the epiphany.
It's I remember, and you've had an evolution, right? Like as most of us have, whether we recognize it or not. But when you were making some decisions about changing the nature of your work,
Yeah.
and seeing you really step in and embrace the work that you do, right? You were coaching before, and seeing you in your current iteration as a coach has been good to see, because I actually see you more joy filled, and you had I would say that you were joyful in the coaching aspect of what you were doing before, but there's a definite difference. And I wonder, I'll ask this sort of in an interview type way, do you feel the difference between you coaching before and where you are in your coaching now, and in
Absolutely.
your work in general?
Well, this is something that's a great question, because I was thinking about that just the other day. One of the things that I put my finger on, and this is going to tie into something I said earlier, I now have time for research. So now I can actually get better at my job, and I can actually make even more of a difference. So I can learn things more. I have that built into my time here. And I remember, this is really funny. And I remember at one of the jobs I had, where I would come and do these things, right? So I created a simulation for a training. It was the first time, so that my boss was like, I want you to teach people how to use the new performance management system. And there were 1,000 people in your organization. There were like 70 managers. You need to teach this to all the managers and supervisors. I was like, okay. I said, let's do this. I'll create a simulation using PowerPoint. And I don't know if you can do that, right? You can put all that stuff in there so it moves around when you click. And I did all that stuff. And I showed it to him and the executive team, and they were blown away by this. And it was really funny. My boss said, well, how did you learn how to do that? I said, those things that you don't like me doing? He said, what? Like, I said, reading. I said, reading. I said, I learned that from a book. I said, so this is the kind of stuff that I am doing when you come up to me and you say, what are you working on? It doesn't look like you're doing anything. I said, I'm actually working on things for the organization. So I launched this product, the simulation, and it was a huge hit. And I did more stuff like that. But that's one of the things. I now have time. So I see that I now have time to say, okay, I really want to work on this, or I see a deficiency here and I need to bolster that so it's better, or I want to lean into this strength. So that's one of the things that I see in myself.
What I heard you say, something that I work on with my clients, which is just bring something that brings you joy into the work that you're currently doing.
Yeah.
Right. And it reminds me of a concept when it comes to health and wellness, which is you don't have to stop doing the less healthy things, right? add in more healthy things. And over time, that's right, you add in more and more because you can't, well, most of us can't anyway. You can't just keep eating, right? Let's talk about eating. You can't keep eating. And so the more healthy things you bring in, the more it starts to crowd out the unhealthy things automatically. And so the same with bringing joy activities into your work. The more you can bring other things in. If reading brings you joy, making time in your work day to do the reading and the research, it starts to crowd out. Maybe it won't crowd out the actual time you spend on that activity, but you'll be connected to the things that bring you joy as a part of the process and not think about the other things so much.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, because I read your chapter and it was interesting. And I always, since we work so closely together, I always love to see how we approach things differently, but they still fit together. My approach was telling a story. Your approach was educating. So, but I'm sure there was an evolution there for yourself. How did you decide to, don't give anything away, of course, but how did you decide to take that angle with the joy of work?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Wow. So you talk about a process in your chapter. You have a process.
Oh, yeah.
So you at the end you have a story in there. You didn't read your chapter either. So
I read my chapter. I didn't understand your question. But that's on me. That's not on you.
No, I'm joking. But
so I had talked about a process and share the story. But so I guess I am process. Right. I think that just is sort of the nature of who I am. It's something that I recognize, that I understand about myself. Logic, analytical, process oriented, right? I studied math in college, originally studied applied mathematics in college. Never saw myself as particularly artistic or creative or someone who, shared stories and things. And it's always been about the facts and conveying the facts. And so for me, that having some self-awareness around that is that to be authentic means to communicate the way that I do. And it is that process that has gotten me where I am. And it is that process that that I see that helps my clients move from A to B, right? From where they are to where they want to be. And so giving a tangible piece of, I don't know, a strategy or a tool or, a process to the readers so that they can say, oh, I can, if I do these things, I can bring more joy into what I'm doing so that then I can feel whatever, right? The other part, Robert, for me is I'm trying to get to a place where I am less tied to the story of my misery. Right? Nothing has any meaning other than that which we give it. And it's something that I am really embracing. What I recognize is that at the time, while I was in the midst of all that I was feeling, I was reiterating a story that the interpretation of which may or may not have been true. Right? The facts were the facts, right? The job was this, that, and the other thing. In reality, it wasn't that there was something wrong with the job. It just wasn't the job for me.
Right.
Right. And so going back to process, going through a process and sort of um, having the self-awareness and analyzing things the way that I do allowed me to start to separate from that and be able to say, I can take the pieces, the nuggets, the silver linings, and the learnings, and then now share those with hopefully the world. Well, the world, because we're international bestsellers. Well,
Yeah,
the world.
it was so funny because I was reading it and I was thinking, I wish I would have did that. but it's great, and it just shows
That's
how
why we work.
exactly
That's why we work
you
together.
approach it. It's so funny where when we work together, I'm usually the process person, and you're usually the story person. But in the book, you're the process person, and I was the story person. I thought that was very interesting.
And I truly believe a couple of things. I want to say this, and then we can start to wrap this up. You know, this book is 3 years in the making. There were several times when I didn't think this book was going to happen. And I was trying to figure out how to make it happen, right? We were supposed to publish this with a different publisher. COVID took the publisher lost his battle with COVID, and then the current publisher, Action Takers Publishing, Linda Sunshine West and Sally Green approached me and said, "No, you had been working on this book with another publisher. Would you be interested in bringing it over to our publishing house?" And I was like, I would absolutely love that, right? And we had to reimagine the book. It got a new title and new formatting and all of that. So, you know, I believe that what came out in the end is exactly what was supposed to come out, right? The timing, the stories that are told, the way that they're told, all of it matters because different things are going to resonate with different uh, people in our audience, right? The different readers. It's one of the beautiful things about collaboration books and projects is that there are 20 stories in the book, 20 authors, and some of them are going to resonate with you more than others. Mm-hmm. Right. And so take the ones that resonate with you, take the lessons that resonate with you, the way they're told, and embrace them. And those that, let's say, don't hit as hard for you, don't judge them. They're just not for you. Mm-hmm. Right. And be okay with that. And so I am extremely grateful to Action Takers Publishing. I am extremely grateful to you on the journey for sticking to it, right? You were a part of the original collection of authors in the original project. Mm-hmm. And you made a decision to continue. And we've been at this now, I think, with Action Takers for about 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it has been truly a journey. I am grateful to Action Takers Publishing, grateful to you as my business partner here, as a collaborator in the book, Cheryl Mays, who is here watching this show, for her continued support. We interviewed Cheryl a couple of months ago. You should go and check out the interview that we did with her, and some of the others who have joined us on the program. Just thank you. Thank you for being a part of the journey, for the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond, the Joy of Work. If you don't have your copy, please get a copy. I'll put the where you can get it up on the screen is actiontakerpublishing.com/joy. actiontakerspublishing.com/joy. Not only the book, but there are gifts for you as well from the authors. So a number of the authors are entrepreneurs, coaches, and other types of entrepreneurs, and they have given gifts for you. So if you go there, actiontakerspublishing.com/joy, and order it from there, you can get your free gifts for visiting that website. And if you think that you would ever be interested in contributing to a collaboration book, reach out to me. There are, or go to actiontakerspublishing.com. There are a number of projects in the works. I actually am going to be working with Linda on a new project. We haven't set the timing for that, but it's going to be a year-long process where we're going to be saying yes to some things, and then writing about the journey of saying yes. So with that, we want to thank you for joining us for this very special episode of the State of Leadership, Simple and Beyond. We're here on Thursdays, 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And Robert, before we go, if someone wanted to reach out and work with you, how could they do that?
They can reach me at roberthilliardcoaching.com. You see it right there on the crawler, or you can email me at inspireme@roberthilliardcoaching.com. I help people from all levels of leadership work on their leadership presence and make their teams help their teams be more effective. So one of the things that I tell people, if you have one of those sticky, gnarly, complex issues that you've been struggling with, please bring them to me. I love working with people that are going through that. So that's how you can reach me.
I'm going to send all my sticky, gnarly problems to you.
Go ahead.
And if you'd like to connect with me, check out shiftingintoaction.now.site, shiftingintoaction.now.site. I have a couple of gifts for you there as well. One of which is an ebook called Love Your Work. And speaking of process, it's the process that I went through to get from where I was to where I am, and continue to use from where I am to where I want to be. So I'm not done yet. As long as I'm breathing, I'm growing, and I'm still going. So, and then there are a couple of other ebooks there as well. And an opportunity, if you'd like to get a strategy session, you can book that with me there as well. So again, the joy of work. Get your copy. Get your copy. Get your copy. Don't forget to get your copy. And we will see you next week. We'll be talking about self-awareness in the news. We've got an interview of yours truly by him truly on the 20th. And then our book club, if you haven't gotten your copy of Decisive or started listening to your copy of Decisive by Dan Heath and Chip Heath, do that. We'll be talking about Decisive and making great decisions on the 27th of this month. So until next time, take care.
Bye now.